you cannot enjoy winning, it is not because you are ungrateful. It is because part of you experiences victory as a threat. And if you have never named that, you will keep chasing the next win like it is going to fix the feeling, and it will not. Quick thing before we go deeper. We are building toward 1,000 subscribers, and your subscription genuinely helps this channel reach people who actually like thinking. And if this hits a nerve, tap like too, because the algorithm reads that as show this to more of the right minds. Okay, back to the uncomfortable part. You have probably had this exact moment. You finally get the thing, the grade, the job, the compliment, the money, the person, and instead of relief, your body does something weird. You go flat, or you get irritable, or you immediately start scanning for what is going to go wrong. You tell yourself, I should be happy, and then you feel guilty for not being happy, which makes you even less happy. That loop is not random. It is a very specific psychological system doing exactly what it evolved to do. This is not just about fear of success. That phrase is too clean. What I have observed, and what a lot of research quietly supports, is that some people cannot enjoy winning because winning changes their social physics. It changes how other people will treat them, how you will treat yourself, and what your nervous system thinks it must now defend. Here is what is actually happening. For some minds, winning is not a reward. Winning is a signal flare. It says, look at me, I am visible now. And visibility historically has costs. Think about this for a second. In a small group, status is not just praise. Status is surveillance. People watch you more. They compare themselves to you. They expect more from you. They test you. They wait for you to slip. So if your nervous system learned early that being noticed leads to punishment, ridicule, jealousy, or withdrawal of love, then winning becomes paired with danger, not consciously, in your body. That pairing is classic conditioning, but with a twist. It is not the win that is scary. It is the predicted social aftershock. That is why you can feel anxious after you succeed, even if nothing bad has happened yet. Your brain is not reacting to the present, it is reacting to a forecast. Let me show you what I mean with a very specific pattern. Some people feel an immediate urge to minimize the win. They joke it away. They point to luck. They give credit away so fast it is like they are trying to erase the evidence. That is not humility. That is threat management. It is a preemptive apology for rising. And here is where it gets interesting. If you grew up in a system where love was conditional on being easy, not being too much, not outshining anyone, then your attachment system can interpret winning as a betrayal. You won, therefore you separated. You rose, therefore you left. And the oldest fear in a social mammal is not failure. It is exile. So the first mechanism is this. Victory triggers social threat circuitry in people whose early environment made prominence unsafe. You can call it status anxiety, you can call it attachment conditioning, but the experience is the same. You cross a line and your body acts like you crossed into enemy territory. Now, that is only layer 1. Because there is a second mechanism that looks totally different from the outside, and it is the one that confuses high achievers the most. Some people cannot enjoy winning because their brain has outsourced pleasure to pursuit. Dopamine is usually talked about like it is the pleasure chemical, but the more accurate version is that dopamine is a motivation and prediction system. It ramps you toward a goal. It highlights cues. It energizes seeking. The rush you think is joy is often the chase signal, not the reward signal. That means if your identity is built around striving, then the moment you win, the dopamine system goes quiet. The chase is over, and you feel empty. You interpret that emptiness as, I picked the wrong goal, or I am broken, or I need a bigger win. But the real issue is structural. You built a nervous system that is excellent at mobilizing and terrible at arriving. Notice the pattern here. People like this do not celebrate. They optimize. They do not rest. They reset. Even their joy is instrumental, like it has to justify itself. And if you push them to savor the win, they get restless, like you are asking them to stop breathing. Now watch what happens when you apply this to modern life. Most achievement environments are designed to feed pursuit, not satisfaction. Social media gives you intermittent reinforcement, which is the same reward schedule that makes slot machines addictive. Promotions come with new targets. Praise expires in hours. So if you already have a pursuit-based brain, the culture amplifies it until winning feels like a quick hit followed by withdrawal. And that leads to a very specific psychological trap. You start confusing relief with happiness. You are not enjoying the win. You are enjoying that the anxiety paused. That is why the good feeling is so brief. It is not joy. It is negative reinforcement, the removal of pressure. If that sounds uncomfortably accurate, stay with me, because the next layer explains why some people actually feel worse after winning than after losing. Here is the third mechanism, and it is brutal. For some people, winning threatens their self-concept more than losing does. Most people assume self-esteem is built by success. Sometimes it is. But there is another identity strategy. You stabilize your sense of self around struggle, deficiency, or being the underdog. Not because you love suffering, but because it is predictable. It gives you a story with a role you know how to play. If your identity is the one who is always behind, then a win creates cognitive dissonance. It forces an update, and updating the self is metabolically expensive. Your brain resists it the way it resists any major rewrite. So instead of enjoying the win, you start unconsciously sabotaging its meaning. You search for reasons it does not count. You raise the standard. You move the goalpost so your old identity can survive. This is not just psychology in the abstract. There is research on self-verification theory showing that people seek feedback that confirms their self-view, even when that self-view is negative, because coherence feels safer than improvement. Coherence is a kind of mental gravity. It pulls you back to what you already believe you are. So if you have a deep belief like, I do not deserve good things, or if I succeed, people will leave, or I am only lovable when I am struggling, then winning is not a reward. It is a threat to your psychological equilibrium. And here is the weirdest part. You might not consciously believe any of those sentences. Your mouth might say, I want success. But your nervous system might be loyal to a different contract, written years earlier in a home where being small kept you safe. Now let me hit you with a pattern interrupt that ties these together. The reason some people cannot enjoy winning is not that they hate themselves. It is that they have an internal job assignment. Somewhere in your mind there is a part whose entire role is to prevent social backlash, prevent shame, prevent abandonment, prevent chaos. That part does not care about your goals. It cares about safety. And winning often looks unsafe, so it does something clever. It turns the win into a problem. It makes you anxious, so you keep scanning. It makes you numb, so you do not attract attention by celebrating. It makes you criticize yourself, so nobody else has to. It makes you immediately set a new goal, so you never sit long enough in visibility to be targeted. That is not weakness. That is strategy. Outdated strategy, but strategy. Now, right around here is where most videos would pivot into, so just practice gratitude. But that would be insulting because it ignores the real mechanism. You are not lacking appreciation. You are managing threat. So let us go deeper. Because there is a fourth mechanism that explains a very specific type of I cannot enjoy winning that shows up in competent, high-functioning people. Some people cannot enjoy winning because they experience it as debt. This usually comes from family systems where achievement was traded for emotional permission. You got praise, but it was not free. It came with strings. It came with obligation. You learned that doing well means you owe performance, you owe loyalty, you owe access to your life. So when you win now, part of you calculates the social bill. You feel it when someone compliments you, and you immediately feel pressure to stay at that level forever. You feel it when you accomplish something, and you instantly think about who you have to call, who you have to thank, who you have to prove it to, i.e., who will now expect something from you. This is why some people prefer private wins. Not because they are modest, because public wins trigger the debt ledger. And here is the key psychological detail. Debt is a threat to autonomy. Autonomy is one of the core psychological needs in self-determination theory. If winning means losing freedom, then your brain will dampen the reward response to protect you. You will feel less joy because joy would pull you toward the very thing that historically cost you your independence. Now flip everything I just said, because this is the midpoint where the whole story changes. Maybe you cannot enjoy winning, not because you are afraid you will lose it. Maybe you cannot enjoy winning because winning proves something that you have been avoiding proving. A lot of people say they want certainty. They want proof they are capable. But uncertainty has a hidden benefit. It preserves ambiguity about your limits. As long as you have not fully won, you can still fantasize that you are secretly extraordinary or secretly terrible without having to find out which one is true. Winning collapses the waveform. It forces reality. It tells you this is what happens when you commit. This is your actual level. And that can be terrifying because now you are accountable to what you are capable of. So some people feel depressed after winning because the win removes their alibi. Before, you could say, I would be great if I had time, if I had support, if I had the right opportunity. After you win, the mind goes, okay, so what is your excuse now? What do you do with yourself now that you have evidence? That is why winning can trigger an identity crisis. Not because you failed, because you succeeded. And now you have to live in a world where you are the kind of person who can do that. That is a heavier responsibility than most people admit. Now here is the synthesis, the pattern behind the patterns. There are two reward systems operating inside you, and they are not always aligned. One system is the achievement system. It cares about metrics, progress, dominance, competence, outcomes. The other system is the safety system. It cares about attachment, belonging, predictability, control, and not being punished for standing out. When you win and feel nothing or fear, what you are seeing is not lack of gratitude. You are seeing a conflict. Your achievement system got the prize, but your safety system detected risk. And the reason this can feel so confusing is that we are taught to treat happiness as a single dial. More success equals more happiness. But psychologically, happiness is an agreement between internal systems. You only feel reward when your brain believes the reward does not endanger you. So what do you do with that practically without turning this into shallow advice? You start by diagnosing which threat your win represents, not vaguely, but specifically. Ask yourself, when I win, what exactly does my body predict will happen next? Does it predict envy and retaliation? That is the visibility threat. Does it predict pressure to maintain an escalation of standards? That is the debt ledger and perfectionism loop. Does it predict separation, like you will outgrow people and be alone? That is attachment grief. Does it predict identity collapse, like you will have to rewrite who you are? That is self-concept threat. You do not fix this by forcing celebration. You fix it by negotiating safety. That might mean you learn to celebrate in controlled doses, privately first, So your nervous system learns that joy does not automatically trigger punishment. It might mean you practice receiving praise without immediately paying it back, so your brain stops equating attention with obligation. It might mean you build relationships where your success does not destabilize the bond, so your attachment system stops treating winning as abandonment. And one more thing that is strangely effective: you separate the win from the audience, not because you should hide, but because some minds confuse being seen with being judged. So you train savoring as an internal skill, not a social performance. You learn to register the win in your own body before you export it to other people. Because the ultimate skill is not winning. It is being able to occupy the emotional space that winning creates without rushing to fill it with anxiety, obligation, or the next target. If you take nothing else from this, take this. The part of you that ruins the win is usually trying to protect you from a cost you once paid. It is not your enemy. It is outdated armor. So here is my closing challenge. The next time you win, do not ask, "Why am I not happy?" Ask, "What does my brain think this win will cost me?" Name the cost, and you will finally be dealing with the real problem. If this changed how you see your own achievements, I would genuinely like to hear what pattern you recognized in the comments. And remember this line, because it is the whole video in one sentence. Some people cannot enjoy winning because their nervous system still thinks success is how you get hurt.